And this visit, historic in the fact that it's the first visit by a president of Kenya to the West Indies, has offered me a great opportunity, especially with this sitting today. The possibility of this sitting was hatched at a meeting between myself and Prime Minister Motley on the margins of the 73rd United Nations General Assembly in September of last year. And during the last AU summit that was held in February of this year, I hosted a side event to commemorate 400 years of the abolition of slavery. And indeed, 3 days ago, I had the honor of attending as a special guest the 57th anniversary of the Jamaican independence. And during that celebration, I and Prime Minister Andrew Holness launched the Decade of People of African Descent. Indeed, each of these events has strengthened my belief for the need to grow stronger links between CARICOM in general, with Africa, and with Kenya in particular. For me, today presents an opportunity to rekindle our historic heritage of the global African community that subscribed to the Pan-African ethos. These values are not new to any of us here today. Our forefathers were bound by them as they worked for the African cause. The entire of free Africa today, particularly sub-Saharan Africa, was forged on this anvil of African solidarity and Pan-Africanism. We in Africa consider our brothers and sisters in the Caribbean as our diaspora, or as we put it, the sixth region of Africa, and within the African Union, the African diaspora consists of people of African origin who reside outside the continent. And this is irrespective of their citizenships and nationality, for we believe they are all willing to contribute to the development of the continent and the building of the African Union. Our long and common historical relationship is a crucial and shared heritage that we need to nurture and more so guard jealously. Indeed, as I've said, I've just come from Jamaica, where we had very constructive engagements with my brother, Prime Minister Andrew Holness, and our discussions focused on enhancing cooperation in diverse areas between our two regions. Over the last 2 days, I've also had the opportunity to have similar discussions with Prime Minister Motley. And I've spoken of redefining the course of our history in order to build a shared and prosperous common future that responds to all our needs, enabling us to engage directly with each other rather than through others. This will be achieved by us reconnecting, deliberately taking measures that forge us together, enabling us to maximize our huge potential across many sectors, work guided by our competitive advantages, and to carry the same message on issues of mutual concern at all multilateral fora, and more importantly, take decisions at our leadership level. Ladies and gentlemen, the task of our time is to serve as a catalyst for the rebuilding of the global African family, in the service of the development and integration of our countries and peoples. And this is an imperative, especially in the current and foreseeable world that is characterized by narrow nationalisms, growing trade wars between the East and the West, the European crisis, and the evident marginalization of the development agenda, and with it, our agenda. If we are able to shape the evolving global trends, we must take charge of the course of history. And it seems to me that the moment for that is with us now. Ladies and gentlemen, many factors are on our side to help us to do this. The warm and cordial relations between our countries are founded on mutual respect and common historical ties. Our countries have similar history and share similar aspirations of achieving social-economic development. Today, we also confront similar challenges. This means that collectively we can find solutions to these, It is in realization of this reality that Kenya has pushed a number of global agenda. And you will recall that we chaired the negotiations that led to the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs. And last year, we convened the Sustainable Blue Economy Conference, which affirmed my conviction that the blue economy presents alternatives that can augment the achievement of the UN 2030. Indeed, on the issue of climate change, developing countries are bearing the brunt of the adverse effects of the ensuing changes. Many promises have been made to us since Paris, but nothing has been forthcoming. And it seems to me, as the most affected regions, we must develop a coalition of negotiations in the United Nations Framework Conventions on Climate Change and promote South-South cooperation to mitigate the impact of climate change. Indeed, today I invite you all to establish diplomatic missions in Kenya and in the United Nations Environmental Programme and the UN Habitat in particular to facilitate and deepen frequent consultations as well as follow up on the environmental and human settlement matters. Your individual country's diplomatic presence in Nairobi, the global headquarters of the United Nations Environmental Programme and the UN Habitat, would enable you to participate directly in addressing the environmental challenges that face us all. And indeed, in the spirit of solidarity, the government of Kenya will endeavor to facilitate and provide office space for all CARICOM countries that seek to establish a presence in Nairobi. A call for collective international action informed by scientific research and technical innovation. This process of regular consultative dialogue and active engagement focused on matters of mutual interest in the international arena will result in symbiotic benefits on matters of peace, security, and development. Ladies and gentlemen, on the economic front, there are enormous opportunities between our countries to expand our trade relations. Indeed, I am reminded that intra-ACP trade stands at less than 20%. This situation needs to be changed if the promise of our solidarity is to be meaningful to our people. We need to create the right environment to encourage each region's private sector to invest and trade at all levels, large, medium, and small-sized enterprises. As governments, we can support these through enabling connectivity and movement of people, goods, and services. In this regard, Prime Minister Motley and I agreed to commence work towards the conclusion of an air service agreement, and there's no reason why that cannot be with other Caribbean countries. Connectivity will enable CARICOM countries to be enjoined with the East African community, whose population is 186 million, and through that, COMESA, with a population of 400 million, both of which Kenya is a member. More importantly, connectivity will create a bridge into the African Continental Free Trade Area, which came into force on the 30th of May 2019 and became operational on the 7th of July 2019. Through Kenya, any business from CARICOM into the African market, gaining access to an African population of approximately 1.2 billion. We too also have a large diaspora across the world that can also be leveraged. So far, diaspora remittances in our countries outweigh most of the financial aid that we receive from many in the north. The diaspora resources can also become an entry point into our countries for development, and this we can work together towards. Ladies and gentlemen, an immediate matter that is of concern to all of us at this time is also the post-Cotonou negotiations within the framework of the African, Caribbean, and Pacific countries. We should together focus on South-South cooperation and the strengthening of the ACP relationship. Kenya and the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States play key roles in the post-Cotonou negotiations. And indeed, let us work together, invest, develop, and deal with global challenges together as a group. Ladies and gentlemen, we must strive to speak in one voice. This partnership, if implemented well, will be a force to reckon in years to come. I am encouraged by the position adopted by the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States in crafting the negotiation framework for the successor agreement between the ACP member states and the European Union. We must speak with one voice on issues that concern us. And in this regard, I urge that we consult closely and pay close attention to substance of the ongoing post-Cotonou negotiations. The next session of the summit is scheduled to take place in December of this year in Nairobi, and I hope that those of you who are here will be in Nairobi, and I look forward very much to fruitful deliberations as we push the ACP agenda forward. That said, despite the ACP-EU relations having some positive impact in our regions, we have not yet fully harnessed its full potential. In order to address this gap, I propose a trade, investment, tourism, and culture cooperation between the Caribbean community and the East African community be crafted through a regional FTA under appropriate WTO rules. Through this route, our respective countries stand to gain from the benefits of trade, and most preferably through a duty-free, quota-free trading mechanism. The most fundamental question we need to ask is, must Africa, Caribbean, and Pacific countries relate through Europe? Why can we not relate directly? I believe that the current discussions to have direct links between the African Union and the Caribbean community, and by extension the Organization of Eastern Community States, are important. This should also be extended to the Pacific region. There is need for us to engage and share ideas on a regular basis as ACP countries. Moving on to UN reforms, ladies and gentlemen, it has been 25 years since the Security Council reforms items were first placed on the UN General Assembly agenda. All of us are in agreement that the reforms are necessary in order to ensure that that body is representative, responsive, and efficient, but above all, effective. However, long-standing differences on the nature of reforms have held back substantive progress. Kenya and Africa as a whole are committed to the UN reforms, and in particular, the need to correct without further delay the historical injustice that some regions continue to endure. We believe our brothers and sisters in the Caribbean and Pacific will continue to be part of the journey that speaks cohesively, with one voice in unity of purpose on all aspects of the reform process. This is crucial if we must have equity and justice in the world that we're living in. Towards that end, Kenya has presented her candidature for the United Nations Security Council non-permanent seat for the period 2021-2022. And Kenya's candidature is informed by the critical role the UN Security Council plays in the maintenance of international peace and security. Kenya has continued to play a leading role in peace, security, and conflict management in the Horn of Africa and other parts of the world. We therefore seek and look forward to the support of our brothers and sisters in the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States for our bid. Ladies and gentlemen, Kenya is host to the only United Nations office in Africa, and the UN Secretary General recommended the office in Nairobi as one of the 4 proposed centers to host a global service delivery model. This was after Kenya met the threshold on availability of space, qualified personnel, employee safety, location, and affordable costs. Indeed, it is my hope that during the deliberation on this matter, on the 5th Committee of the United Nations General Assembly, CARICOM countries will support Kenya. Ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, I remain confident that there will be continued efforts to further strengthen the existing relations and explore emerging opportunities to advance the social, economic development and prosperity for our people. I want to once again, in conclusion, thank all of you for your welcome into your region. I want to thank Prime Minister Motley for her invitation to enable me to attend this session and to give me the opportunity to share some of the thoughts that I have with you all. Indeed, I invite each and every one of you to visit Kenya, to visit Africa at a time of your convenience. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.